The developer of Dojo Masters, Bybyblue, will be joining us today. I think it's important to talk to our indie developers, see what's going on with them, see what they think about the state of the industry and the community, and find out about their games, learn about them, maybe get some insight as to how they were made and why they were made. Dojo Masters is something that's currently in development, and we should be seeing something from it soon. So I got a lot of questions about it. I'm going to be bringing in Bybyblue in just a second to talk about their game, find out what their experience has been, and learn about what's going to happen in the future. I'm going to be bringing in Bybyblue just now, right now, in fact. I'm going to give them a call. Hey there, Bybyblue, how's it going? I appreciate you being able to make it out and chat a little bit about Dojo Masters.
Yes, I'm quite excited to talk about it.
Let's start this off. Maybe give us a little bit of the origin story of Bybyblue and Pixeled Vision. I want to hear a little bit from you about how you got started on your road to Dojo Masters and where we are today.
Oh boy, that's quite a loaded question. So, I guess not to stretch out too long, but my game development journey started at the age of 7, actually. I knew very early on that I wanted to be in this field. Surprisingly, the game that sparked my interest in game development was Luigi's Mansion. Very, very strange game to start with. It was one of those moments where I played it. I remember being like, man, that was fun. I could make it better. Obviously, me being a young person was like unaware of what actually went into game development, you know?
Oh yeah,
So,
the folly of youth, right?
yeah, you just think, oh yeah, I can do that easily. A little after that, I was I would get a computer and I would just start making games. I no tutorials, no nothing, just looked it up online. So I'll make video games. Cool, I'm gonna do that, and I just threw things at the wall until they stuck. And I did that for a really, really, really long time.
That's phenomenal. What did you? I'm curious. What did you start with when you started programming? Like, what were you making games in?
Well, again, me being a kid of make game was Game Maker, like the old Game Maker.
Okay.
And then shortly after that, I actually went to a software you're probably really familiar with, Fighter Maker 2002.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, and I spent a lot of time with.
Really? Okay. I've got to dig into this a bit. I am obsessed with 2D Fighter Maker. So, yeah. What were you building in that?
Let's a lot. So it was pretty much anywhere my obsession was. So at the time I was getting into anime. So I'm not mistaken. My very first project in it was probably a Naruto, game, right?
Oh, of
Then
course.
a Bleach game, and it was like, oh, what you call Smash Bros is cool. Let me do that, but with anime. And then after that, I said, well, let me try a Smash Bros game. I did all this random stuff. I tried to figure out how to make platformers in Fighter Maker, how to make menus. I did a lot of wacky things that you probably shouldn't be able to. Honestly, that probably sparked a lot of my interest in trying to build with limitations. Um, one of my design philosophies kind of build like put restrictions on yourself, right? Like when you're making a project, when you don't have restrictions, it makes it very hard to know where to start and what to do. But when you have limitations, your questions kind of change a bit, and you're like, man, I really want to do this, but the limitations say I can't. So how the heck am I supposed to do? And I much prefer tackling game design in that regard.
There's something when I look at the games that you've been making, and we're going to get into some specifics, but just generally, I tend to see this really like well scoped game. It is very like, I don't know, consider it in like what you're doing, and you're like, no, you don't need all the bells and whistles. It's about this thing, and I'm going to build within it and iterate on that kind of, innovation through limitation.
Yes.
So like that is obviously like a core part of your design philosophy. Where did that come from? Where was that kind of, other than the engines that you
Right.
happen to be working in, and your kind of, throw it at the wall approach to learning? What were the kind of games that inspired this?
I wouldn't say any game particularly inspired the idea. I will definitely say after I had the idea, I started using older games as examples. Like I
Okay.
would, a fun example I like to bring all the time, when I'm telling people about game design and whatnot, is that because one thing that tends to happen with a lot of indie devs that I talk to is that they get very, very discouraged in perfection like I'm a perfectionist, right? But there's like it has to be a limitation on how perfect you want to be, right?
Yeah.
Like you can't think, oh, I can't put this out there because this animation doesn't look too well or that doesn't look too well. And I always bring up, at least if I'm talking about fighting game, I say, what about Street Fighter 2? Like when people were working on that, the animation that they're serviceable, right? But
Mhm.
I'm sure the developers on the game were probably like, man, this animation's not that good, but at the end of the day, for them, they wanted to get the game out. So that's definitely something I like to reference a lot. But if I were to say what sparked it the most is probably my in the middle of my development journey is probably the fascination and fixation I've had on recreating game systems, right? So I would take a game that I like and say, huh, I wonder how they did that. I try to remake it in an engine that is not fit for it. So a lot of
Mhm.
that would be taking 3D systems and reworking them in 2D. How can we bring that over? How would we make this 3D system work in a 2D space? And that's just an easy example, but there was way more that I would experiment.
Honestly, that kind of shines through in Dojo Masters itself. I was actually just thinking about this, that the idea of knockdowns in fighting game being so important, that right, you get this like looped pressure throughout a single round. But the way that Dojo Masters works is that the knockdowns will actually, like, that is your win condition, as opposed to a condition on your way to a win, right?
Okay.
And it's kind of like an interesting approach to like looking at the way things are handled traditionally in fighting games and taking a slightly different view on it, and that changes the dynamic of the fighting game and can make it quite interesting.
It's interesting you bring up the knockdowns in Dojo Masters. Surprisingly, that aspect isn't completely uh inspired, if I were to say that, of my philosophy there. That one more so comes down to how do I word this? I'm very often the entertainer when it comes to events and gatherings. So I have a history of making very quick, small games just to show off and give people something to do, right?
Okay.
And because of that, I've gotten really good at making party games. So that aspect, as well as a bunch of other elements in Dojo Masters, are my way of making this easy to pick up and play at a party. Like if you were to put it on, anyone can play it. It doesn't to some extent, it doesn't matter how good you are at the game, anyone can play it, right? That's
Hmm.
why I always say that Dojo Masters is a extremely low skill floor, but the ceiling is ridiculously high,
Yeah.
right? And I really enjoy that. And I really like messing with game mechanics and design that make things more quickly enjoyable.
So would you say that's like basically like your elevator pitch for for Dojo Masters, right?
I suppose. I don't know if I've given that much thought when it comes to Dojo Master about elevator pitches and whatnot, but I suppose you could say that.
All right. Well, it's like, so what would you say the core of Dojo Masters is then? It's a fighting game. Like for me, it's like I immediately noticed it not only for visual style, but in kind of the way it works in terms of its fighting game mechanics, being something a little bit different from what a lot of games do. So like, yeah, what is it about Dojo Masters? Like, how do you sell it to folks?
See, that's a question because I just kind of do. I don't really think about how I'm doing it. Let me see. Give me a moment. I guess the first angle I would take is either if they're into retro games, I bring that part up, but I'd probably first tackle martial arts, right? Because that's a really cool aspect of Dojo Masters that, with the exception of Tekken, and I'm sure there's other examples, right? But that's the first one that comes to mind. There aren't many fighting games that are really, really strictly focused on the martial. Oh, I guess Virtua Fighter, right?
Virtua
That's
Fighter as
one.
well.
Yeah, yeah.
You
That
see,
are like
3D
focused on the
fighters
martial
have
arts.
a tendency to lean
Mhm.
into that a lot more, I find.
Yes, probably because of the more elaborate like footwork and hand motions that come with martial arts, right? But I think there's value in it in a 2D space. And I would probably say with that, it's funny you say that because when I look at the martial art games in 3D space, it's very rare that the characters' personalities are anything outside of one note, right?
Hmm.
Tekken is only just starting to kind of do that. But when it comes to 2D games, personality is everywhere, right?
Yeah.
So I would probably say that's probably how they make up for not being able to fully represent the martial art. That's just my hunch, right?
Yeah.
Because one of the reasons why I can represent the martial arts so well in Dojo Masters is because the character move lists are so limited, right? One of the very first things I ran into while making the characters was Muay Thai. while yes, the martial art can do other actions, what comes to mind when you think of Muay Thai,
Hmm.
right? Clinch grab, the knee strike, the jabs, like those are the basic fundamentals of the martial art. And because I'm boiling all the characters down so much, it makes them easily recognizable, and it makes it so anyone can relate to them if they're really interested in that martial art. You'd be surprised how many comments and DMs I've got. People just saying, "I love how you captured the essence of this character. I practice it. It's really cool."
Your ability to distill these
Give
martial
me,
arts
give me,
into
give me a
mechanics
second to mood up, okay?
is just phenomenal. It is absolutely so impressive, right? And so yeah, so that's kind of your approach, right? Is you take one or two core fundamental recognizable aspects of it, and then you build a limited move set around that. That kind of translation strikes me as really difficult, right? What were some challenges that you faced trying to do that?
So the biggest challenge, and it's so unfortunate, is that when you start boiling down martial arts, right? A good amount of them are very, very similar to another martial art, to the point where it's not worth adding that other martial art.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'm not gonna speak any names yet, because I don't want to prematurely shoot anyone's hopes down for a martial art that's going to get added in the future. But there are some that are just like, if I add this, it's literally just this martial art. Why would I? There's no reason to do it. But when I make games, with very few exceptions, I really cannot stand when two characters are exactly the same for the
Hmm.
most part. It drives me crazy. Like, again, there are exceptions, right? I guess the best example I could do, which there are some differences here, are the original Martha and Roy in Melee. Like, they are different enough where their personalities are different, and they have that small gimmicky thing that
Hmm.
makes it enjoyable. But if the characters are exactly the same, it drives me crazy.
Man, that's fascinating. So like, so obviously there are some challenges in terms of that distillation there, making it, a unique thing. Because I think it's something that's a bit of a risk, I would say, even for me, who's like, I'm not someone who's super into martial arts, but yeah, right. Like, I get enough of it that I see Muay Thai, and I'm like, yes, I understand that's Muay Thai. I see boxer, obviously, I understand that's boxer. You've done a really good job already of making it, for even the uninitiated, making it really recognizable. But I guess there are still limits to that distillation, right? I guess that's the other side of the innovation through limitation, is sometimes you just hit the limitation.
I'll be surprised if I run into a martial art that has too many actions that they do. That'd be very hard to adapt. So far now.
I wanted to talk a little bit about the I guess the pace of play in Dojo Masters. I would say most fighting games are very, very combo centric.
Mhm.
They really rely on that as some of the like core differentiator between them. And Dojo Masters obviously has combos, but they're fairly limited. And like I said, it's much more about very quick exchanges that reset to neutral, as opposed to being like round long series of exchanges. And I wonder about like how that impacts the way players actually play the game. From my personal experience, it is a game that has a very, very high mental stack, like a very large mental stack requirement.
Yes.
You need to do a lot of things, but it is still somehow a very approachable game. Like, how do you balance that for players who might not want the super like intense mental stack, but want the casual interactions?
Surprisingly, when you first played it, you were the first person to bring that aspect up, right? Um, but there are things designed in the game with I'm going to use the term casual here. With casuals in mind, to make it a little bit easier to get into. What how do I word this? So, for instance, right, the whole teching thing. That's part of the mental stack. Like, once you know teching is a function, is something that you can do to save yourself. That's when it gets a little bit harder, because you're adding more to it. But a beginner player is not going to do that. And if the player doesn't tech, it makes it so that way how much they have to focus on is lessened, because the reset happens. Secondly, one character I'm going to just use for example here, Shotokan Karate. That character is designed for beginners, even though Muay Thai is kind of like beginners like to gravitate towards it, in the sense that the way a beginner typically plays, right? At least from my experience, and when gotten people hands on the game that don't play fighting games, et cetera, they typically mash buttons. They roll their face on the controller, right?
Yeah.
Um, And then at some point after rolling your face on the controller, they decide, I want to hold forward. So what are they going to get? They're going to get oppressive forward moving attack. Eventually that player is going to figure out, how do I block? Oh, you walk backwards, they're going to start blocking, and then they're going to get too defensive. So that's why Shotokan Karate's backwards attacks are attacks that get you out of, defensive situation, right?
Okay.
And then out of all of that, I also account for the player that's just going to press every which direction. So sometimes they get a grab and they're like, oh, I got this super cool grab. So not only am I out of the corner, but it looked cool, and I probably got the knockdown because it was unexpected. So I am very I would like to think that I'm pretty good at figuring out how people will play my game. I hope I'm not like saying that prematurely and then the game comes out and everyone just does some crazy ridiculous thing I didn't expect, right? But in general, I would say I'm pretty good at figuring out what people are going to do. So I design around that, knowing that it's going to happen.
I mean, that takes a really good understanding of your player base and your audience in order to really do that effectively. I have noticed that you've done you and Pixel Vision have done a pretty good job of like building up your own community that has supported you a lot. Would you say that's part of it? Maybe is that like you are pretty familiar with your community, you have a solid one, and that's kind of why you can intuit these things a little bit.
Honestly, I would say I'm sure like 100% my community probably helped feed into that, but more so than that, my past of just always being the showing off new things and new games and new experiments and stuff, that helped way more.
All right.
Because it was always different people. It was always, I don't play games, let me try it. So
True.
I was always exposed to new people touching my products and my stuff. So I always saw, what's the first thing they do? What's the last thing they do? What if they played for this long? What if they played for a short period? All that exposure just helped me, build up the skills to kind of pick that apart.
That is a like a particular skill set, being able to tease that out of people, because I think a lot of the times people don't really know what they want or what they like, or at least why they like or don't like various things. What would you say has probably been the biggest surprise to you in terms of what players have gravitated towards in your game and what they have kind of shied away from?
What would I say? Has anything surprised me?
I mean, okay, if no surprises, then like, what is the kind of thing that you called? Like, you put something into the game and you're like, folks are gonna love this, and you're like, yeah, got them.
Okay, that's a bit easy. Well, the first one that comes to mind immediately is Muay Thai's knee.
All right.
Everyone loves that round start knee is a staple. Outside of that, something that I put in, this is probably the first thing I put in that it was more so I couldn't wait for people to finally start using it, is Boxer's backward spin dash, the one where he like glows and stuff and he leaves the trail.
Yeah.
The backward spin dash by itself, like in a vacuum, it feels very pointless. But in neutral, when you finally start doing it, it completely confuses the opponent, and it's so cool because you want to open up the opponent, especially if it works best against Muay Thai, by the way, because they can like grab you and stuff. But you go to hit their shield, they're about to immediately try to punish you, so you spin dash back, and then because you do that, all of your attacks have an insane amount of forward like push on it, so you come back and get the follow up, and you just start the combo from like the mind games involved with Boxer are like so cool at a high level that I couldn't wait to see it, and it's finally happening, and it's exciting. The only high level that hasn't happened yet, but I expect it to not happen until launch, is Taekwondo. Taekwondo, just looking at it compared to the other characters, probably the lowest tiered character. Not just because it's hard for them to get their attacks out, but they're off the ground a lot, and that's a state you typically don't want to be in Dojo Masters. And because of that, a lot of new players, even though they say they look at it and say, "Oh, that character's super cool," they tend to gravitate off of it because it's really hard to win. But outside of that, I don't think there's much that surprised me.
That's really interesting, because I mean, I've spoken to a lot of devs who are almost invariably, it's like they play their game, they test it out, they get it into players' hands, and then within 20 minutes, a player will do something that they're just like, how the hell did you get into this situation? Right? So
I say part of that, though, is just because of how streamlined Dojo Masters is compared to a much bigger project. Like Dojo Masters, don't get me wrong, it's still a big project, but everything's much more focused, right? There's not like 50 plus mechanics like something else that I've worked on. Like this is very, very, very to the point that I can very quickly come to conclusions and pick apart. Well, that's going to happen. Well, that's going to happen. That's going to happen. Do I want that? Do I not want that? Fix that. Don't fix that, et cetera, et cetera.
On that topic, I mean, how do you balance the like scope of the game versus the value that players get out of it and what they expect to see out of fighting games?
Typically, my way of designing the scope of a project is to first start off with the most ridiculous thing that I want to do. Figure out what aspects of that are the most enjoyable to me. What aspects of that would be the most enticing to people that would want the game, and then start cutting out things until it gets to a much more focused project, right? So I guess this is the reverse of working from the ground up in that sense. As far as expectations of what should be in the game and whatnot, honestly, I don't know if this is a hot take or whatnot, but I think that most people's expectations of what a fighting game should provide are too low. Um, I think that too many fighting games, and this isn't a knock because obviously fighting games are ridiculously hard to make, right?
Mhm.
But I'm always disappointed when I get a fighting game and it's just all right. Here's versus mode. Here's arcade mode. You may have online, you may not. Maybe training mode. Have fun. $60,
Yeah.
right? So obviously that expectation it gets lessened the lower in price, and like when it's an indie game, I understand, right? I get it, but I remember the moment I realized that fighting games started removing elements that I liked about it was a little after Soul Calibur 2. Like Soul
Hmm.
Calibur 2, I spent a lot of time. That's my favorite fighting game. All the additional modes, the what is it, weapon mastery or something, where you go
Yeah.
on that journey and you go through all the different gimmicks and stuff through missions. It's very, very fun. I had so many fond memories of it. And over the years, and again, it's probably a consequence of games being more expensive to make. They just removed feature, removed feature,
Yeah.
removed feature, and single player experiences kind of need to be there for a fighting game. I think if a fighting game isn't like enjoyable in an offline sense when you're playing by yourself, it's kind of a problem. And so one game that's kind of somewhat my benchmark, right? Is I forget what it's called. It's a Street Fighter game on the PSP. Just looking at the main menu and the options in it, the how many game modes is ridiculous.
Hmm.
And again, it was probably designed that way because they know it's on a PlayStation Portable.
Yeah.
They're probably not going to play online. We need to give them things to do. And I really, really enjoy that aspect. Like there's so many modes and features I have planned for Dojo Masters. I wish they could all be there on launch, but I'm but one person.
Yes.
Um, right. So there's at least going to be like four, not including some mini games. So there's like four additional modes I want to do post launch, and then one fifth one that I'm going to at least experiment with, but I'm not guaranteeing it's going to be.
Okay, so that I mean that's a lot, right? Obviously, this is an important aspect, giving people single player content to play with, something to latch onto outside of competition. Like as much as fighting games are about the community and the competition, yeah, you're right. You need to be able to enjoy them as a standalone thing. So that's great, and you've already have some like alternate modes included in the game, and there's going to be more on the way. What are your thoughts on the current state of the market for fighting games, and like how do you manage to make your games in a way that are engaging but still affordable?
I'm not quite sure I have a good answer for that. It's another one of those things where I kind of just do.
I mean, very clearly you've managed to like make it sustainable for you to work on these games. I'm not sure if this is full time for you, but between like you have a Patreon for both for that supports both Project Fantasy and Dojo Masters, is my understanding.
Okay. So here's what I could say to that regard then. Funding or no funding, right? Or time or no time, I would be making games regardless, right?
Yeah.
But the Patreon does help. I've only actually been working on Dojo Masters like full time for the past month, and it's because we're getting close to launch. But Dojo Masters itself, its scope was directly influenced by the support of the Patreon as well as the public reception.
Okay.
Had the reception and or Patreon support for Dojo Masters specifically not been as high, we would have had a very, very, very different game.
Okay.
It would have been just Shotokan Karate. It would have been the type of fighting game that I wouldn't buy, right? But at that point, the game probably would have been free,
Okay.
right? And then it got a better reception, so now we've upgraded. So now we're going to have a roster, but it still wasn't feature rich. And then it just kind of kept growing to the point where now it's going to be a full-fledged game more, right? additionally, at least as far as how I work, I get the most motivation and progress done out of two things. One, community support. Having someone, for lack of a better term, rely on me, or very much looking forward to something that I put out. And again, it's probably spawned from me always having to showcase stuff, right?
Mhm.
Is the seeing them say, "Oh, that's super cool," or "Oh, I can't wait to see what's next." That is very motivating to me, right? The second one is spite. I love proving people wrong. There's been a few times where and some people that know me in my community know what I'm talking about, but there've been a few times where someone would be like, "Why would you do that? That's stupid," or "Don't do that. It's a waste of time." Like that's just a surface level, but that stuff gets under my skin.
Yeah.
I love proving people wrong so much. You have no idea.
Man, I knew spite was a motivator for players to get better at fighting games. I wouldn't have thought it was a motivator for developers.
I don't know how unique of a response that is, but that's definitely how I work.
What has the process been like? What has it been like for you on your journey to getting Dojo Masters to this point then? Like between building community, which is obviously kind of that was your approach, like how are we gonna what is our scope gonna be? Well, what can we afford? What are you most excited about right now going forward?
What I'm most excited about. I would say maybe three things. Uh, and it's kind of my statement's kind of more so where my current mindset is. So like if
Hmm.
you asked me like a little while ago, it would have been different, but it's because it's immediate. My brain's on it. Is
Yeah.
one, looking forward to finally tackling a ranked mode for the first time, trying to figure out how to actually to do it and set it up. That is,
Okay.
I'm pushing super hard to try to get that for launch. There are some things I got to get done first. For a bit of transparency here, even though I have experience with some networking stuff, a lot of the things you see in Dojo Masters is done for the first time. When I build projects, I like to use smaller projects to test out features that I'm going to do in later things, right?
Hmm.
So getting the lobby system, first time doing it, right? Matchmaking, first time doing it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? So finally figuring that out and getting it working is something I'm very much looking forward to. Uh, Second is probably the Steam Workshop, seeing what people are going to do. I can't
Nice.
wait to see people be like, oh man, this martial art's not in the game. Let me make it. That's going to be very fun. It's going to give the game a lot of longevity. Knock on wood, right?
Yeah.
Um, small tier Mugen online, right? With rollback.
Damn,
Uh,
yeah. If that is the pitch, you will get immediately you will get people on board.
Oh, trust me. When the workshop's working and we finally start getting some notable things on there, I'm going to market that aspect way more. It's just hard to market that without actual things in the workshop, you
For
know?
sure.
So, thirdly, I'm looking forward to what the high level of this game is going to be. Like I already
Hmm.
see it in my head. I already know how it's going to play out, but I want to see it. You know,
Yeah.
that's going to be super sick. Like if ranked mode goes how I'm expecting it to, it's going to be horrifyingly sweaty at the high level. Horrifying.
Man,
So
I
yeah,
am I
I
am
would
so
say those.
stoked for that because like for sure when I started playing this game, I immediately saw like the potential, right? Like you start piecing together the different mechanics and you're like, "Oh my God, you would theoretically be able to do that." And then I played you and you were like putting some of that stuff into practice and I was like, "Oh my Lord, this is just the beginning," right? Like this game's not even out yet. Yeah, I'm excited to see how high the ceiling goes because like you said, the game is very low skill floor but very high skill ceiling. And yeah, I think if people latch onto it, man, you're going to see some fantastic matches. Well, so we did talk a little bit about like how do you fund this game? How does it go forward? And the state of the industry. I wanted to talk a little bit about the recent announcement that Dojo Masters is going to be getting a version on the Exa Arcadia platform. This is an interesting topic for me. I think the resurgence of or the potential resurgence of like arcades as a platform is really interesting. It's been tried before over the last 10 years or so to varying degrees of success. But it can be something that's hard to get into. This is largely an East Asian, right, Oceania kind of
Yeah.
thing. How did you get involved in this partnership with Exa Arcadia? Like, how did it come about? Were you approached
Happenstance.
or?
No, I was not approached actually. A developer buddy of mine actually introduced me. uh I can't say too much on what his affiliation was, but essentially he couldn't do what he wanted to do. So he said, "Hey, let me introduce you to someone and see what you think about it." And that's how I was introduced to the X Arcadia, folk.
What is the appeal of an arcade platform to you as a developer in this day and age? I mean, like, I got to admit, like, it's a limited platform. Only so many people have access to arcades, let alone the X Arcadia. So, like, what is the incentive here?
So I don't know how unexpected this response is, but for me, I just wanted my game in an arcade.
Okay.
Right? That's it. I just was like, why not? That sounds really cool. I want to do it. And then we ended up where we are. It's almost like what is it? Like the whole partnership between me and X Arcadia, at least from my perspective, is purely a personal endeavor.
Fascinating. All right, I thought that might be part of the component. There is this kind of prestige associated with being in arcades within fighting games. I definitely have a kind of like personal connection to the arcades as well, so I have some of that nostalgia, basically, and love for it. So I totally get that. But that's really it. You're just like, damn, this thing can be in an arcade, so let's do that.
Yeah.
I guess what kind of support are X Arcadia offering you guys to make this game, and who is responsible for actually porting it?
So that's a three-part question. But first, the porting process is actually done by me.
Okay.
As far as support goes from them, they build like up the SDK and things so that way I can actually get it to function with their arcade cabinets, coin slots and all of that. So they don't actually, at least again, I can't speak for how they handle other projects, right?
Yeah.
Because again, this purely personal endeavor, but they don't help with the actual development of Dojo Masters, right? They only help with Dojo Masters EX,
Yes.
right? So, and with that said, with at least with the EX version, they do Q&A for that, like input testing and all of that stuff, as well as like marketing of the EX version and whatnot, like bringing it to trade shows and events.
Okay.
Outside of that, though, they are hands off.
So they really, for them, it's about getting the games on the platform and having a roster of games that they can promote and sell, as opposed to like, because I think whenever these publishing deals happens, a lot of people are concerned that suddenly their favorite developer becomes beholden to an outside interest, right? But it is very much, they don't want to mess with your game. They want to help you get your game out on a new platform.
Well, I can't. I unfortunately can't speak to how they do the other ones. This is just solely how I've set this deal
absolutely.
up for me.
So this isn't a standard boilerplate deal. They seem like this. I guess you've done at least a bespoke deal with them to get this game out. And so yeah, you're completely in charge of the porting responsibilities. They provide you with the SDK and Q&A and marketing, obviously, for that version of the game. So I'm already seeing it come up in chat. People are asking about what kind of differences are there going to be between Steam and Exa. My big question is how does this like X Arcadia exclusivity impact the future development of Dojo Masters on PC?
So it kind of does and doesn't. One, the original scope and design of Dojo Masters remains unchanged. Right? The game that I wanted to get out is still the game that I'm going to get out. Right? Including all the post-launch content, all of that other stuff, right?
Okay.
In the sense of how it did impact it is solely, well, because now I'm to some extent juggling two projects, right? Is that I guess you can say the planned finish of all the features for Dojo Masters maybe got pushed back 2 or 3 months. That's about it. But other than that, it's completely unchanged.
All right, so this while you are managing another project now, it's obviously not so high impact. So like the porting, I mean, the SDK obviously is doing its job in terms of helping you get it up and running there. So it's what has that process been like? I'm curious.
It's actually been kind of fun. There's a lot of nuances that come with an arcade scene. Like I was already aware of them, but there were some that kind of flew over my head. I don't know if I can pick one off the top of my head right now because I was busy at the time that I had to go back and forth and fix some things. But just like how do I word it? The flow of gameplay, it changes a little bit because you're in an arcade scene as opposed to being at home. So like certain things need to be tweaked to make it feel more comfortable in an arcade. right? So small things like that have to be done. Um, as well as I think an easy example for you that probably makes a lot more sense. Like, it's not in the home version yet, but it's going to be coming hopefully before the end of the month. Mission mode for Dojo Masters, that makes no sense to have in an arcade. So
Hmm.
like that would be removed. So that's the example of like how things don't really transfer over like back and forth. So yeah, it's been fun. It's been interesting having to tackle the challenge of making the game, for lack of a better term, accessible in an arcade, setup.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I guess that is interesting because it does, the context of the game changes based on where you're playing it. So yeah, like just menus would be different because you have different needs as an arcade, as a player in an
Exactly.
arcade, right?
Yep.
All
Arcades need
right.
coins and credit handling. It needs to be able to know if someone got off. If you're playing arcade mode, does the score carry? Like there's a lot of small little questions that need.
Yeah. And so that would lead to there will be a difference ultimately between the two versions in terms of like feature set, because I know that is a concern for a lot of folks. Can you speak at all to that and how you'd balance that?
I don't think I can really say much about it. Uh, so for the sake of NDA, I'm going to
Respect.
repeat
Yep.
that my original design for Dojo Masters is unchanged. That's what I'll
Yeah.
say.
Following off on that, I mean, just what has your experience been with X Arcadia in general? Like, what are your thoughts on it? Do you think that like this is worthwhile for other developers to explore an arcade deal in this day and age?
My experience with them so far, I've had no issue. It's been enjoyable. Like I said, it's for me, it's been fun. I've been enjoying it a lot. Um, as for is it a good idea for other developers or for that matter, other indie developers? I do not know. Every indie developer has different circumstances, right?
Yeah.
Um, not everyone is able to work the same way I do. So it's hard for me to give that sort of recommendation. So I guess honestly, yeah, no, it comes down to the individual and what the contract looks like for them, what they want personally. It's a
Hmm.
very hard question to answer because again, I don't know how other deals work with X Arcadia. I only know about my
Fair.
own.
That's fair. I mean, I think it's a I think it's an interesting thing. Like I said, the idea of your game being an arcade does have some level of prestige. So I could understand that as like just yeah, like as a personal desire. And frankly, there is something to be said about X Arcadia as a publisher being interested in independent fighting games. I don't know if you've what is your experience? Have you spoken to many other folks in publishing about fighting games, about any of your projects?
No, not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
Mm.
This is something I have heard from many developers is that yeah, there are some struggles in getting publishers to buy in to the idea of a fighting game in the current climate. So like I said, it's amazing seeing X Arcadia being there, being willing to support folks, and very clearly you've had a good experience working with them.
And in all honesty, I'm personally, again, since this is a personal endeavor, I don't like having a publisher personally.
Yeah,
If I had my way, for all projects, I would self-publish.
I mean,
Yeah,
fair.
yeah, yeah. That's it. I understand the value in having a publisher, especially if they're like funding your project and whatnot. But I don't know. They would have to if a developer, sorry, if a publisher wanted to fund one of my projects, I would study that contract really hard because
Yeah,
there's always caveats that come with it, you know?
yeah. Someone in chat
And
just saying with any publishing deal, you have to give up something. It is a give and
yeah.
take, right?
And so I'm very touchy when it comes to any sort of publishing deal, especially if they want to fund the project.
And so I mean, it's come up in chat here as well. Like, does X Arcadia, pay you or fund the development in any way? Like, can you speak to the types of support you're getting from them outside of the QA and the marketing?
Uh I don't believe I can. The only I can really say is that they're not funding the development of Dojo Master.
So they are strictly in the business of supporting the EX version.
Yes.
Yeah, Magneto saying, yeah. So the publisher is Exa Arcadia proper, correct?
Yes.
Okay,
At least for
yes.
Dojo Masters EX. This is a
For
distinction.
Dojo Masters EX, and then you are self-publishing on Steam, right?
Yes.
And do you have any plans of bringing the game to other platforms? A lot of folks are really excited about the prospect of this being on mobile or being on Switch.
Okay. So I don't know which will come first. It's very possible that Dojo Masters releases on Steam. Everything goes super well, and it turns out that my game is insanely easy to port to console, and then that ends up happening first. Though I guess you're probably not aware of it. Dojo Masters is designed like 90% with mobile in mind.
Yes.
The
Amazing.
layout of the menus and the way the gameplay flows is all in service of considering the mobile player. So at some point in the future, and I have a feeling I know who asked this question. At some point in the future, it will come to mobile. I do not know when yet. There's a lot of things that need to be figured out. The biggest one being servers. The mobile user base is massive, and the servers will fry if I just open that floodgate. So I need to go about it in a very smart way, rather it be like I'm just spitballing here, right? Because nothing's been set in stone. The mobile version just doesn't have online play, or the mobile version only has local play, like with other mobile devices nearby, or mobile version is like the free version you can play offline. You have to get the paid version to go online. Maybe there's a version where basic matchmaking works, but if you want to play ranked, you have to buy the game. Like, I don't know, right? But it will happen at some point. Just the game needs to be finished. Like Dojo Masters, like the home version needs to be complete, right? Before I can begin porting it to mobile.
Yeah.
That means all post-launch content, all of it. It has to be 100% complete before I tackle that. But the game is still designed with mobile in mind, so I'm always keeping that at the back of my, whatnot.
That's great. Was the like no jumping, was like your use of like button real estate with like relatively limited move sets and attack buttons, like was that part of your consideration, was making it for mobile?
Yep, 100%.
Oh, that's fantastic. I mean, that seems to be a very, very popular like design philosophy when making mobile games. You've seen it recently with games like Super Dragon Punch Force and Konsui Fighter, who have both PC and mobile versions and do similar things, right? Any other like favorite tricks to make things manageable on mobile that you have come across?
One of honestly, a lot of it parallels and crosses over with the party scene, but right, like the fast gameplay, the easy to pick up and play. You don't want a mobile user picking up a fighting game on mobile to be in a match for like 5 minutes. That wouldn't make any sense, right?
All right.
I don't know 100% how people play mobile games now, because I don't really play mobile games personally that much anymore.
Yeah.
But when I did, it was always for short bursts in between going from place to place. Oh, I'm waiting for someone to show up. Let me waste 2 minutes. And so Dojo Masters is very good for that, right? Additionally, the lack of buttons, or rather the fact that the game was essentially a 4-button fighter, not including the ability to face the camera. It allows mobile inputs to be easier to digest. I've seen quite a few, like I don't know how they look now, but I've seen quite a few fighting games on mobile where they overload you with inputs on screen. I'm pretty sure I've seen one with like 12 buttons before. And I'm like, what are you doing? Why would you do that? You have to adapt to the medium. You can't just directly one-for-one port it. It doesn't make any sense.
So I'm curious, for you as a developer, like, has this been, because I've noticed this shift over recent years where mobile games have largely become more more comfortable to play and more accurate to play. Is this a reflection of the hardware, or like the actual like OS level touch recognition, or is this more, do you think, like developers' design paradigms making it better and easier to play?
Honestly, it's probably a mixture of both. I've been messing with mobile since like 2012-ish, maybe a little earlier than that. And while yes, everything is more responsive, it getting better has not changed how I design for mobile. I'm always designing keeping in mind the old phones that I used to use.
Okay.
Right? And I guess that's kind of me putting a limitation on myself. But I don't know how other devs handle the hardware advances, right? As far as the design goes, I would say people are generally just probably getting better at it. Like because obviously when you're designing something, you're going to look at your neighbors. The whole competition
Hmm.
forces you to improve and whatnot. So if you see someone else that decides to do something different, you're going to say, "Oh, well, that's pretty cool. We should probably try that." Right? And then that's it just keeps rolling that way. I'm not sure how often I looked at other games, for example. I just remember seeing the 12 button fighter and thinking it's stupid,
That's
right?
too much.
Because this is something else that a few people know about, but Dojo Masters is just one game in the entire Masters series. There is actually another Masters game that I have already tested on mobile with rollback, and the controls work really well. The 4 button layout is great, but you won't be seeing that for at least another year.
There's some time there. Well, can you give us a bit of an update about what we're expecting out of Dojo Masters over the next little bit? When are we looking at launch, and how long are you anticipating until kind of it becomes feature complete?
So, there are about 5 major features. Oh, I guess 4. I just finished one of them. 4 major features left in Dojo Masters for launch. The hardest one, it's probably going to be ranked mode and getting the global matchmaking, right?
Yeah.
But thankfully, one of the guys I'm working with, that I was commissioned, he's helped me with some peer-to-peer type stuff, and I should have that by the end of the month, which is around the time that I should be working on the network infrastructure. So,
Okay.
with that said, um, I don't want to give a solid date. What I will say is that I'm pushing super hard because again, I'm working on it like full time right now. I'm pushing super hard to get this thing out by the end of June, right? And the way I work and design is pretty straightforward. So there should be, knock on wood again, very limited issues and hiccups. Um, Though, if it for whatever reason it does get pushed back, it would have to be like early July. And I say that because I guess a bit of an early announcement here. Dojo Masters will be making an appearance at Evo. Right?
Hey.
So it's kind of a bit of me wanting to get the game out before that. So when it's on the show floor, people who see and they want to play it, they can go pick it up immediately. So from my perspective, no matter what, the game will be out before Evo. I will figure it out.
Well, heard it here. All right, so that means we're gonna get to actually sit down and play a match in person at Evo then.
Yes.
Nice, nice.
And
I'm
as
excited.
for the question of when will it be feature rich, I would say the game would probably be complete in its entirety, probably a little before June of next year.
Okay, okay. So like basically a year to work your way through implementing the rest of the modes you have planned.
Not just modes, characters.
But characters as
When
well.
Yeah, the characters. This might surprise you, but with one exception, characters only take me 2 weeks to make.
Wow.
Right? I work pretty fast. But there's a caveat to that. That's if it's just the character being playable. Every character has menu assets they need. They have trials, right? They have
Yeah.
missions. So all of that stuff effectively bumps every character to taking about a month of development time to make,
Okay.
especially because it has to be localized. That localization eats up a lot of time as well. So that's the only reason why it would stretch on as long as it is.
You have the game localized in quite a few languages, don't you?
Yes.
So what was the inspiration behind that? Is that just like you have a global audience already?
Well, I have a small global audience, not really a big one. It's more so that if Dojo Masters is going to be a martial arts focused game with martial arts from the world, I want it to be a global experience. Ideally, I would want anyone from any language to not have to struggle to play the game. They can pick it up, pick their language, or to automatically pick it, and they're just good to go.
Hmm.
Right? That's like a personal thing. I want it to be inclusive.
That is a very like admirable value to have with your game. So I definitely appreciate that, and I know because it can be very time consuming to get it properly localized for all these different regions. So kudos on that effort. All right, well actually, so that's great, man. I really appreciate you coming by and talking about your game, and talking about your experience making games. Is there if you have any parting words, the floor is yours. But otherwise, where can people find you, and where can people find your game?
Parting words. Oh man, you think I'd give thought into that, huh? Um, I don't know. I'm not much for outros, honestly. And almost every time I've done outros, it's always been abruptly short. It's kind of like my thing, right? But I would say thanks for anyone listening to the interview. This has been a very fun experience. Just talking about game dev in general. I could talk about game development, my gripes with the industry. It's so much. Yeah, I could be very talkative when it's about something I'm passionate about.
Trust me, I want to get into a lot of that, but I figure I shouldn't keep you here for 6 hours. So
understandable. But yeah, no, this has been super fun. I like talking about it, and I honestly I can't wait to show you all the martial arts that are coming. I wish I could cover all of them. I really do. But too many are too similar. I am but one person, and I like to put a bow on project.
yeah,
So that is what it is. Um, and yeah, as far as where you can find me, I am Bybyblue 2 on Twitter. That's the number 2. Um, I am, I believe it's Bybyblue on Instagram, but I don't use it. Just ignore that. Pixel Division on Twitter, Pixel Division on YouTube, Pixel Division on Instagram, Pixel Division on Facebook. As mentioned really early on, I also have a Patreon in case you ever wanted to support. I'm pretty sure it's Bybyblue on there. And yeah, wishlist the game once. And I look forward to meeting some of you hopefully at Evo.
100%. I'm excited to be able to meet you in person.
That would be quite interesting, and I will let you know. I'm quite the jokester, so if I talk a lot of trash and when I beat you in the game, I'm sorry.
Oh no, I expect nothing less. Oh, it's amazing. Like I said, thank you so much for coming by and talking about this. I hope to be able to sit down with you again soon and talk maybe more about the industry and the process of game development, just writ large. I'd love to get some thoughts on that too. But yeah, thank you for coming by.
No problem.
All right, man. Yo, I'm gonna be taking a little bit of a break, but I will be hopping on to some Dojo Masters, so maybe we can get some folks in queue and we can get some matches in.
Yep. I already sent off a message to a few of my people. We'll see if
Awesome.
any of them show up.